Welcome, everyone. My name is Joe Bill. I am president of the board of directors for the International Dark Sky Discovery Center. And I have to tell you, this is pretty exciting to see this many people show an interest in this project, because this is uplifting. It's energizing for all the people who have been working so hard on this. So thank you so much for coming this evening. Before we get started, Mayor Ginny Dickey has some opening remarks. Please welcome Mayor Ginny Dickey.
Thank you very much. Welcome to the unveiling of the International Dark Sky Discovery Center renderings and plans, celebrating this exciting adventure made possible by all of our friends here, the volunteers, staff from the town, who are committed to our extraordinary hometown. The collaborative effort here perfectly captures the essence of Fountain Hills, and I'm grateful to be sharing in this moment. Particularly we're on the verge of the 30th year of our being an incorporated community, and also the 50th anniversary of the first rising of our iconic fountain. Like the stars themselves, becoming a dark sky community aligns with Fountain Hills' vision to maintain our special character, encourage lifelong learning, and of course promote stewardship of the natural environment. So I, like you, can't wait to see what's next, and I want to thank our host, Joe Bill, who will come up and get us through the rest of the program. Thank you.
Okay, again, thanks for coming. What we've got in mind for tonight, and I hope you can hear me. If it's not okay in the back, just raise your hands and we'll turn up the volume. A little bit higher? Okay, we have a technician here who will do that. In the meantime, you can maybe hear me talk a little bit about what's on tap for tonight. We're going to start with a presentation. Okay, how are we doing now? Is that better? How about now? Is this better? Is that good? Good? Oh, it's a little echoey. Just a little. Okay. How's that now? How about now? Is it okay? More? You're okay? All right, good. Let's roll. Okay, we're going to have a presentation, after which we are going to unveil the renderings that a lot of folks have been waiting for. And you'll see them in the PowerPoint, but also you'll see them on easels at the front. We will unveil those. We're going to have some of our board members come to the front after the questions and answers so you get a chance to look at them closely and ask them questions one-on-one. So we encourage you to do that. We also have in the back some printed materials, and on your way out there's a booklet and a brochure. You're welcome to those materials on your way out. And there are also email sign-up sheets. So if you put down your name and your email address, we would love to keep you up to date on the progress with this project, so we encourage you to do that as well. And then outside, you may have seen that coming in, there are a couple of telescopes. You can look at the rings of Saturn or the moons of Jupiter. Unfortunately, the clouds weren't cooperating totally, so we didn't get some big telescopes out there tonight, but you can still see some pretty good stuff. Okay, some of you here are familiar with the history, and it started a little over 4 years ago, when a group of us got together and decided to work hard to preserve the night sky that Fountain Hills has. And we found out that we can get the community designated as an International Dark Sky Community by the International Dark Sky Association. So we worked hard on that, and after about 3 years, we succeeded. And it was a lot of work, but we did it, and it got nationwide publicity because it is quite rare, almost unique, to have a community that gets that designation so close to a major metropolitan area. Of course, and then I might say too, because of our great night skies out here, sometimes we refer to ourselves as a dark sky oasis in the Valley of the Sun. Of course, when you do something like that, you have to celebrate. So we had a festival, and it was successful. We had a second festival, and this year, next spring, on March 28th, we will be having a third festival. And they're a lot of fun. A lot of huge telescopes come in from around the valley. There's food vendors, beer and wine gardens, student art contests, solar system walk, the community garden gets involved, the museum gets involved. So it's really a fun thing for the whole family. Some of you may have noticed the signs at the entrances to our community. These are along Shea Boulevard at the east and west entrance. This happens to be a sign at the east entrance denoting that we are an international dark sky community. We also participated in the Thanksgiving Day Parade. We'll be in it again this year. We built a small float. This was built in the driveway of Vicki and Mark Dirksen, their home, and they're on our board. But there was so much glitter left over in their driveway for a month, you could actually see it from the International Space Station. So all along the way, as we were working towards this, we thought, well, what more can be done? Early on, as we were working on this, we thought, well, if we get the designation, maybe we should have an observatory, or maybe we should have an observatory and an exhibit hall. So these discussions kind of were ongoing, but our focus was to get the designation first, otherwise it wouldn't make a whole lot of sense for Fountain Hills. So this next quote is kind of what I think got us going. It's a quote from Johann von Goethe. It says, "Whatever you can do, or dream you can, begin it." And so we did. The first thing we did is we pulled together a group of leaders from the town. These are the stakeholders: the Chamber of Commerce, the school district, the Fountain Hills Cultural and Civic Association, and of course members from our board. And we had a series of meetings to try to determine, okay, what should the facility have in order for it to be a great educational venue as well as an attraction. And so we came up with it needed to have 4 major components: an observatory, an exhibit hall, a planetarium, and a theater/auditorium. So we thought, okay, that's a good idea, let's do this. So the next step was we formed a nonprofit, Arizona Corporation, created the bylaws and all this stuff, and then we have a board of directors. And this is the board of directors for the International Dark Sky Discovery Center. And I want to also mention that we have another board. It's called the Fountain Hills Dark Sky Association Board. There's overlap because some people are on both boards. They have different objectives. But I think what I'd like to do, because of how much work they have done so that they can be recognized, if all those members, some of them are in the back, please stand or raise your hand, because I think they deserve a round of applause. So the next thing we did was we said, okay, we have to have a logo, and you have to have a logo in your company, right? So we did that, and with the help of one of our board members, Clayton Corey, but we also had to have a name. And the name we came up with was International Dark Sky Discovery Center. So Discovery Center, that makes sense. Dark Sky, that makes sense. We're a dark sky community. Well, sometimes we get this question: why international? Okay? Well, because no other facility in the world focuses on dark sky preservation as a portal to better understanding astronomy, the space program, the universe, and life on Earth. This approach will establish the IDSDC, that's our acronym, as an international centerpiece for supporting the growing worldwide interest in preserving dark skies and understanding that relationship to the well-being of humans, plants, and animals. I might just mention that right now there are close to 25 international dark sky communities. We were number 17. There are over 100 dark sky parks and preserves currently. These are around the world. And there are over 200 applications in process. So this is a growing movement worldwide. So our vision is to inspire, educate, and stir imaginations to cultivate a greater appreciation of our dark skies, our planet, and the universe. So when you embark on an adventure like this, you have to have a feasibility study. Is this project feasible? And Arizona State University stepped up to the plate to help us out. A feasibility study was done under the direction of Dr. David Swindell, a professor in the School of Public Affairs. And it was done by his master's capstone level students as their final project prior to receiving their master's degrees. They did a great job, and it served as a foundation for us, in which we, of course, we've developed further, we've delved deeper, etc. But they came up with some key findings. Number one, they determined that the project is sustainable. And of course, that's critical in a situation like this. So it's sustainable. They said that it's critical for having a great relationship between this facility and the town residents. And just tonight, I'm so pleased to see this interest here. But also, I want to thank the town council, because the several times we've gone to the town council for various steps along the way, every vote was unanimous. And finally, they concluded that not only will this facility contribute to the local economy of Fountain Hills, but also to the global astrotourism industry. Now, how will this facility be used? Okay, what you see here is, I would have to say, the short list, okay? And perhaps the best way to go through this a little bit is by going through it one major component at a time. The major components are, number one, the Dark Sky Observatory. Okay, so every one of the major components now has a name. It's not just an observatory, it's the Dark Sky Observatory. Okay, and this is the telescope that we will be acquiring, or planning to acquire at this time. It's a plane wave telescope with a 27.5-inch mirror. This is considered a large telescope. You can do research with a telescope like this. You can do live broadcasts. It's available for astrophotography. You can have it for public viewing. It's handicapped accessible. So it does all the things that we want it to do. And then some people might say, well, yeah, but you only can use it at night. Well, that's true, you can only use it at night. But it's really interesting to learn how other observatories have people coming by during the day just to look at it. It's just kind of a fun thing to see and have a tour explaining what the telescope does, et cetera, et cetera. I mentioned astrophotography. This happens to be the Rosette Nebula taken by Dennis Kolesnikov, who resides in Fountain Hills, taken from his backyard. And when you get a telescope like what we are planning, now all of a sudden you can look into deep space. And you start seeing things like this and you say, what's that? And then you say, well, what's that? And you might say, well, what is that? Well, Neil deGrasse Tyson said it the best. He said, the universe is under no obligation to make sense to you. Okay, major component number two, the hyperspace planetarium. And I'm sure many of you have been to a planetarium. Typically, over the years, the seats have been arranged in a 360-degree circle around the central projector. The newer approach is to have a tilted dome. So picture the dome tilting forward about 20 to 25 degrees. And what that does is the seats are then in a semicircle. So everybody's kind of facing in the same direction. You don't have to tilt your head back as far, and you have a better view of the entire dome. The other part that's really neat is that it can kind of serve as a bit of a classroom. So when a teacher brings a busload of students to see the planetarium, at the end of the show, the teacher can stand in front of the students and say, what did you learn? What questions do you have? So that's going to be a great venue. And of course, I don't know if any of you have ever seen a music and laser light show in the planetarium, but it's a bit of a sensory overload. But anyway, it's really something that is very popular. You can pick almost any kinds of music, classic rock, country, Pink Floyd, Beatles, whatever. And those shows tend to be quite popular. Okay. Major component number three, the Inspiration Theater. Now, this will have about 150 seats tiered, and it will have the latest 8K projection technology and great audio systems, so it's certainly going to be equipped for any kind of video production, any kind of presentation, etc. And in addition, when we talked with Rick Alling, who's the director of the Marston Theater at ASU, and we explained to him what we were doing, he said, when you create this, he said, you're going to be surprised at the kinds of requests that are going to come out of the woodwork. So, for example, he said, you'll probably get a request from a movie group that wants to show a classic movie or an art house movie, and someone involved with the production of the movie is going to speak to the group before or after the movie, etc. He said, but that's just one example. He said, you'll just get lots of requests, so be prepared for it. So I know there are a lot of folks in Fountain Hills that have always wanted a movie theater. This is not an IMAX, and it won't be showing first-run movies, but it can show movies, art house movies, classic movies, etc. And finally, major component number 4, the exhibit hall, which we're calling the immersion zone. Why are we calling it the immersion zone? Because it's immersive. It's going to have a tremendous number of interactive displays as opposed to static. And the beauty of that is that when people come, you can't see it all in one visit. You can't finish it. There's more to learn. So there's a reason to come back. And also, it's just such a fun way to be educated. And we have a number of great ideas for it. Some are a bit complicated. Let me give you just one simple one. If you can imagine standing under just a smaller dome, and you're kind of curious about what the night sky might look like in different parts of the world. So you might specify, I want to see what the sky looks like in Manhattan. So you look up, but you won't see anything, of course. But then you pick Phoenix. Okay, now I can see some stars and planets. And you can pick Fountain Hills. Now you see a lot of stars and planets. Or you can pick a remote mountaintop, and you'll look up and you'll say, that can't be real. But it is. And so it's a great way to educate people about how the night sky looks different in different parts of the world. And of course, there'll be some virtual reality and other kinds of interactive activities. We also have a classroom planned, would accommodate 40 students. And there are people who have moved to Fountain Hills because of the dark skies that bring with them a lot of knowledge. There's astrophysicists that have moved to town they'd like to teach. We have amateur astronomers. We have amateur astrophotographers, and they're very good at what they do, and they can teach. But not all the classes will be focused in that area. We're talking with Arizona State University about their Osher Lifelong Learning Institute. They can bring lots of different subjects and classes to Fountain Hills. So we're working on that. There will definitely be student tours. The Musical Instrument Museum, some of you I'm sure have been there, they get close to 100,000 students a year. Now, we can't compare, their abbreviation is the MIM Museum. We are not going to get 100,000 students, but we will get busloads of students coming to Fountain Hills to see this facility. And we also, Flagstaff has astronomy camps, and Tucson has astronomy camps, and the largest metropolitan area doesn't have any. So here's another opportunity for us. And then the other thing is events. When you have a unique facility like that, sometimes you get requests to have it rented. Private corporate group, small private party, and they rent the whole facility. Things are catered in. And when we visited with Brian DeBates, is the Vice President of Education at the Space Foundation Discovery Center in Colorado Springs, they have event space in their facility, and he said it's booked almost every single day. So he said, be prepared. Education relationships. Well, certainly, we definitely want to work closely with the Fountain Hills Unified School District. Our principal of the high school is so excited about this and how much it does for this competitive educational environment for our STEM program. This is going to be a big plus. But it doesn't stop there. We know ASU is interested in working with us. Same thing with the community colleges. And when you think about it, there is no telescope like this in the Phoenix area. And for students who are interested in that, to be able to get their hands on a telescope, learn the software and how to operate it, what a great opportunity that is. So yes, there will be lots of educational relationships. Astrotourism. Well, that's definitely on the rise, and I'm sure if this is from the New York Times. If you Google it, you'll see all kinds of examples. Come to Ireland, come to Australia, come to Chile. All these kinds of things around the world. Astrotourism is going. We already have some of that in Arizona. They come to Arizona, sometimes known as the astronomy state. So they want to visit Kitt Peak or the Mirror Lab at the University of Arizona or Lowell Observatory. And so that astrotourism is not only looking through big telescopes, but it also includes laser tours of the night sky. And we, by the way, did these at both of our previous festivals. The director of the Lowell Observatory, and Ted Blank, our vice president and NASA Solar System ambassador, they conducted these laser tours of the night sky, which is pretty cool. But also, hotels are getting into it. They're having telescopes, and so the guests can come out, use the telescope, and often they have an amateur astronomer come by to explain what they're looking at in the night sky. This is a growing thing around the world, actually. Some restaurants are getting into it, so they, Starry Night Margarita sounds like fun, right? And I'm sure if they make a vodka drink, they'll use Sky vodka, right? Now you might think, well, it might be a while before Fountain Hills ever does anything like this, right? Well, not so fast. We have already developed a working program with Copperwind. And you can see that right here. It's a stargazing dinner series. It's offered monthly. And we have 3 members of our board who are amateur astronomers that support this program. And they are referred to, by the way, down here, the Star Dudes. And so the Star Dudes are Tony Pastilli, Ted Blank, and Scott Adams. Now, I help coordinate this with them, but I don't have a big telescope like they do. I can't read the night sky like they can. So they sometimes refer to me as the Star Dud. I can take it. Okay. Anyway, like this is just a picture up at Copperwind last Wednesday night, and there were a number of guests that came out to look through the telescopes out on this lawn behind their restaurant. Okay, integrated marketing. This is an interesting concept because, yes, certainly this facility would be marketed on its own for what it offers, but when you think about where it's going to be, kind of next to one of the finest community gardens in the Southwest, next to the River of Time Museum, which has the history of the Lower Verde River Valley, and a very fine sculpture garden around Centennial Circle. So if you can imagine putting together a brochure or a marketing piece that goes around to the various groups and communities across the valley, all of a sudden they can look at that and say, oh, and go all to one place and see all that stuff. So we currently, Fountain Hills sends buses out to the MIM Museum, to the Heard Museum, whatever. We want to turn those buses around, and I think we will. This, of course, would be done with the Town of Fountain Hills Tourism Office, the Chamber of Commerce. Fort McDowell is aware of what we are doing. They are very interested in participating. Copperwind already is, and the local restaurants, we believe, someday will be involved as well. Here's the floor plan. And remember, we talked about the hyperspace planetarium is over here. This is the Dark Sky Observatory. You can see the Inspiration Theater and the immersion zone here. This is the classroom. And then you can see there's a private outdoor courtyard with a coffee shop, lobby, gift shop, etc. Everything is on one level. The only 2-level portion, there's some offices on the lower level and a few offices and storage on the upper level, just in one section right in here. And it's about a 15,000 square foot facility. Now, where is it? Okay, we are right over here in this building right here. This is Centennial Circle. Here's the library, the museum, and here's where it would be positioned. This is the community garden, and so it's positioned in the northwest quadrant of the community garden. Now, we worked with the community garden on this, just so you know. We are going to pay for moving the beds, the entire cost, so they will not lose any beds. But I have to give a shout out to Jerry Butler, who is on our board, and Rita Applegate, who's on the community garden board. They put in a lot of hours to come up with this win-win solution. So if you happen to know them, give them some kudos because they deserve it. Now, with a project like this, of course, there are support statements, and I won't read them all in detail, but this is from Betsy LeBeau, the CEO of the Chamber of Commerce, and of course believes this will be a great attraction for residents, visitors, and good for local business. This is Dr. Kane Jagodzinski, sometimes goes by Dr. J. Anyway, he recognizes how important this is for the STEM program in our community. This is from Mayor Jenny Dickey, and indicating that, of course, as the 17th International Dark Sky Community in the world, this town is a perfect location for something like this. This is from Ruskin Hartley, the Executive Director of the International Dark Sky Association, and of course, they definitely share a common goal. They're trying to educate people about preserving the night sky, and so will we. This is from Dr. Jeffrey Hall, the Director of the Lowell Observatory in Flagstaff, and he knows how critical dark skies are to the multi-billion astronomy industry in this state. Again, we're sometimes referred to as the astronomy state. This is from Mark Pine, the Deputy Director of the Griffith Observatory in Los Angeles. They get about 1 million visitors a year. We won't get 1 million visitors a year. But he did recognize that what we are doing is such a great thing. We are going to get people coming by, and it's a great public service. So one of the things I'd like to mention here is this is not a Fountain Hills attraction. It's actually, when you think about all the dark sky communities and the people associated with them, the dark sky parks, the people that worked on that, and the hundreds more that are in the pipeline, they all are going to sit up and take notice when this Discovery Center is built, a dark sky Discovery Center. And of course it's going to get the attention of many astronomers, some people in the space science industry, and so we like to say this is not a Fountain Hills attraction. It's an international attraction in Fountain Hills. There is a difference. One more, Debbie Johnson, Executive Director of the Arizona Office of Tourism. She too sees how dark sky tourism is such a major draw for this state. And we do have people touring on buses through the state of Arizona, or in cars, of course, Kitt Peak, Mirror Lab in Tucson, Lowell Observatory in Flagstaff, and there's no doubt that this will be, our facility will be an additional stop. Last subject, fundraising. That's kind of important. Okay. Every fundraiser will tell you that part of it is about connections and then developing a relationship, which can potentially lead to a gift. So I suspect that when we talk about connections, I wouldn't be surprised if there's someone in this room who knows someone who might be relatively high up in one of these corporations, or the foundations or individuals, which I'll go through, or you might have a neighbor or a friend that you know is very close to someone at a high level. Those kinds of connections, if you open the door, our job then is to inspire. So we hopefully can go in and inspire, develop that relationship, which can lead to a major gift. Now these are foundations, okay, which is another category. These are some of the foundations in Arizona, and the numbers on the right tell you about how much money they give each year, okay? And if you look at, if you look at the Kemper and Ethel Marley Foundation right here, just a few weeks ago, they gave the lead gift for the Astronomy Discovery Center at Lowell, because Lowell is developing something too. It isn't like our facility, but it was a big project. And they gave the lead gift of $14.5 million. So these kinds of things can happen, and that's what we'll be working on. And lastly, there's always individuals. These are some of the multi-billionaires that live in Arizona. And the nice part about individuals is if they are inspired, they can make a decision quickly. If you go to, let's say, a corporation, it's like, well, we got to go through this committee and then maybe next year's budget and blah, 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 so, which is okay. We'll pursue that, honestly. But I'm just sharing with you that we know that sometimes people like this can make a really quick decision. So, fundraising goal. Of course, we're a 501c3, and when you establish a fundraising goal for something like this, you have to have money for the construction costs, as well as generally, typically, the first 5 years of operations. The reason for that is you don't want to open the doors with no money left in your bank account. It takes a few years to build up your membership program, to build up your grant program, etc. So when you add the two together, for us, the total comes to 18 million. So that's our goal. And the way you get major gifts is through naming rights. I can tell you, bake sales won't do it. So, naming rights means that if you give a major gift, and typically a lead gift is half the total amount, in our case that would be 9 million, then it could become the John Smith or Jane Smith International Dark Sky Discovery Center. And the same thing applies to the other ones that I have here that are smaller amounts for the major components that we discussed tonight. And we also have smaller amounts for like the classroom, the private courtyard, the lobby, etc. But naming rights is the way you start the fundraising. Now, somewhere, something incredible is waiting to be known. And I think that's what we came here for tonight. Okay, so this is what it looks like. Here's the observatory. Over here is the planetarium. This is the general entrance, office areas here, etc. And one thing I want to mention is that this is, you could call this a concept design in a way. Because if we become fully funded, that's when the serious architectural work begins. And when you get into the real details, there will likely be some changes to this. But in general, this is kind of what it would approximately look like. This is an aerial view or a drone shot. Again, here's, whoop, I did it again. This is the planetarium. This is the observatory over here. And you can see over here, this is the library parking lot. So you can kind of see where it is. So this kind of faces north into Centennial Circle. And we have one more. This is the same as the first view, but this is at dusk. So it gives you an idea of what it might look like at dusk. And I have to give credit to the person who worked on this. We were linked up to an architect by the name of Greg Zimmerman. Dennis Brown, who's on our town council, has worked with Greg, and so he pointed us in Greg's direction, which we appreciate. And Greg, are you here tonight? There he is, way in the back, hiding. Please give him a round of applause. We're pretty excited about this, as you might well imagine. I have two more support statements. This one says, Arizona State University looks forward to developing a collaborative relationship with the International Dark Sky Discovery Center. This is from Dr. Michael Crow, ASU president. One more. The International Dark Sky Discovery Center is an exciting opportunity for students and amateur stargazers alike. The center will be another tremendous asset to keep our state at the forefront of STEM education. And who's this from? Governor Doug Ducey, state of Arizona. So, yeah. And I'll tell you why we're excited about this. First of all, I want to give credit. James Smith, our Economic Development Director, connected us with some key people at ASU. Cecil Yates is the one who made the first call to the governor's office on our behalf. And so those two helped get us started with this process. But the really cool part about those last two support statements is it's a bit of a vetting, if you will, because you don't get these easily. This comes through meetings, conference calls, materials, checking articles in our newspaper. And thank you, Bob Burns, for some great articles, because the governor, I think, read them. And also making sure that there's great support, that it's not, so that they check were the votes from the council unanimous, okay? Those are important things in order to get those kinds of support statements. So when we talk to potential donors, to be partially vetted already by people like that is really going to help us. So finally, will the stars align for us? Okay? All right. So it says here, in order to build an International Dark Sky Discovery Center in Fountain Hills, all the stars will have to be, hey, I think we just got lucky. Hopefully they'll align someday in the future. With that, we're going to switch to just a couple of questions And then at the end, I'm going to have some of our board members come and unveil the renderings on posters so that you can talk to them one-on-one. And then in the back, I think I'd like to have you stop and put in your name and email address if you're willing. We would love to keep you up to date on the progress. Just fill that out. And we have some great materials to hand out on your way out. There's a booklet and a brochure. So I'll take